Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. I wasn't sure if I was sharing the screen correctly, so I wanted to confirm that. Welcome to World's English, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Tony, and I am here to tell you about the IELTS speaking exam. So this course you're probably seeing as a recording is Introduction to the IELTS speaking section of the exam. So we'll go over some high-level general tips and tricks for the exam, things you need to know about that part of the exam. But to get heavily into the preparation course, first of all, you should be an upper intermediate or advanced level English speaker before you attempt the IELTS. And let's see. Secondly, you should take a free level test to confirm that, and I'll show you how to get to that level test. That's recommended, and it is required for the exam prep courses. It's recommended for other courses too, just so we know what level your lessons should be. Okay, so just waiting for the page to load here. So you go to worldsenglish.net, that's our website. And there's a lot going on my computer right now, so once the page loads, you'll be clicking Find a Class or book one of our classes down here in the corner. So go ahead and open that, and you get a menu of all of the courses that are currently available at World's English, all of the lessons. So to take your level test, here's the IELTS section, but first of all, before you do the IELTS lessons, you should go through your level test. So you'll come here to Miscellaneous Services and click on the expand that. You'll see level test at the top and bottom of the list. Click on that and then just choose the first available time and date, because it's not really a live class at first. You're just going to receive a link in your email. If you've been registered on the site before, it will recognize you. Otherwise, you'll need to complete this information. And we need this information so that we can enroll you in your level test. All right, and it recognizes this email, so I can submit. Once I have enrolled in the lesson, I can go to Manage Booking. Actually, that's not going to apply on this. This will be the link you will use to meet with your instructor about your results, but in this case, you'll receive the link in your email for the level test itself. I just canceled that so it doesn't show up on my calendar. But let's see. Then once you've completed your level test and your follow-up lesson, which are both free, and probably with me or another teacher, then you will be able to enroll in your IELTS courses. You can take these introductory videos anytime though. So you can see all the introduction courses are free recorded sessions. This one we're recording right now, so it's not showing up as a recorded session, but it will. You see, reading is a recorded session. By the time you see this, it will be that way. Those are free. All other lessons, live lessons, are $5 for the group lessons. And all other recorded sessions are only $3. So we have very competitive, probably the lowest prices in the industry. Our goal is to make learning English affordable for you. But we still need to pay our teachers and maintain our website and those sorts of things. So we do have to charge a small fee, but very inexpensive. So once you have completed the introductory lesson for an area or a part of the exam, for example, we're talking about speaking today. So this lesson that you're watching now will qualify you to move on, and you can take all of the speaking lessons that are available. Once you've done your level test, you do need to do your level test. You know, nobody's going to stop you from enrolling in a lesson that's at a higher level than you should be taking, but it's a waste of your time and money if your English level is not ready. So that's why we really insist on the level test. The IELTS exam is very expensive, so you know you want to pass the first time if possible. You don't want to spend a lot of time and money failing on a section of the exam that you're not ready for. And the level test will show you all parts: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Okay, so that said, let's go ahead and get on with our lesson. Okay, so the speaking section of the exam lasts 11 to 14 minutes. The IELTS exam does have a live examiner during the speaking section. If you were taking TOEFL, you would be speaking to your computer. But the IELTS does use, Cambridge does use a live examiner for the IELTS. There are 3 parts on the exam. There's no dictionaries, thesauruses, or anything like that allowed. The test is the same regardless of whether you're taking the academic version or the general version. Speaking section of the test is the same. Reading and writing have different tests depending on whether you are taking the academic or the general test, but speaking will be the same on both. Okay. So take a look at this list and think about which of these subjects the examiner will ask you about. Okay. So I can tell you that it could be any of them. All right. How high do you need to score on the IELTS? Well, there's no pass or fail except that which you need to achieve for your purpose. So if you are taking the IELTS for the purpose of immigration or acceptance into an English-speaking university, you will know what score you need to achieve. You will be informed of that. So in that sense, that is the score you would need to pass. Otherwise, you would need to take the exam again to bring your score up to achieve the goal you're trying to achieve. So if you don't know what score you need, that's a question you need to ask the immigration officials or the university officials, whoever you're working with. Maybe it's your employer or potential employer, but find out what score you need. The IELTS is graded on a score of 0 to 9. Typically, it's not always the case, but typically they are looking for a 7 to 8 band score. 9 would be actually the score expected from a native English speaker. There are a few non-native English speakers who can achieve that, but that's a lifetime study. So candidates who can express themselves on most subjects, but who make a lot of mistakes might only get a 5. So that's a pretty low score. As I said, a native English speaker might get an 8.5 or 9. I am not a perfect native English speaker, so I would expect mine to be about 8.5. But someone who is very eloquent, has a big vocabulary, the ability to express themselves very well, would possibly score a 9. So what band are you hoping to get? That's something you'll need to decide. Okay. If you had to measure how well someone spoke your language, what would you listen for? Okay, so this is what your examiner is listening for. Your pronunciation, your lexical resource, your grammatical range and accuracy, and your fluency and coherence. Okay? Those are things that you will need to achieve prior to taking the IELTS exam prep courses. The purpose of the exam prep course is to give you the structure of the exam, to introduce you to the types of questions that will be on the exam, and to give you templates and tips and tricks to pass the exam and achieve your highest possible score, to get you used to the timing of your questions, and to give you feedback, to allow you to have feedback from your instructor on how well you are responding to the questions. So, and to give you practice speaking to someone to overcome your nerves. You might be very nervous. So those are the kind of things we're trying to achieve in the exam prep course. But prior to enrolling in exam prep, you need to have a good handle on all of these things. And this is what the level test will tell you. So be sure to take your level test. And if you do not score highly in any given area of the level test, you'll know that that's an area you should study for a while. Maybe you'll need to improve your reading skills or your listening skills. Okay. All right. Can you say these words and phrases correctly? Let's start with photograph. Okay. I think we have a student coming in, so I'm just trying to wait for that. So bear with me for just a moment. Okay, so the first word, please pronounce that to yourself, and then I will pronounce it afterwards. So this one is photograph. This one is measurement. This one, breakthrough. Okay, here, and we have a couple phrases. What's your favorite film? Hello?
Hi, Tony. I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
No worries. I need to turn my volume up. I can't hear you very well.
Okay.
I've just been talking to myself, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Either way, I'm recording the lesson, so.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
How are you? Nice to see you finally.
It's nice to see you as well, even though I really can't see you at the moment because all I see is the lesson on my screen, but it's nice to hear you.
Okay. Okay.
I hope you're well.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, so we were going through these words, practicing the pronunciation. So let's just have you pronounce each of these, and then I will follow with my pronunciation.
Sure. Photograph,
Photograph.
measurement,
Mm-hmm.
breakthrough.
Breakthrough. Okay, and the phrases also.
What's your favorite film? I've
What's
had a delicious breakfast.
I've had a delicious breakfast. Very good. Okay, so I'm sorry you're coming in the middle, but you can catch up with the by watching the video later.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so to get a high score, you need in the speaking section, you need a large vocabulary, and as I mentioned before, it's very important that you have this vocabulary prior to taking the IELTS preparation course. You should be testing at a level in the level test that says you're prepared for that. So if you don't have that vocabulary, you can go back and take vocabulary lessons. Of course, I know you do, Monica, for anyone watching. and you've already done the level test, so we know that you're good.
I'm just trying. I just want to pass it. Pass this test
Yeah,
really bad.
you are the kind of student, you are at the level, based on your level test results, you are the kind of student that is ready for this. So, and that's something I've been trying to emphasize throughout, is that it's very important that you are prepared and at the upper, intermediate, or advanced level in all areas prior to attempting the exam. So if you have a weak area, you know, then you should be brushing up on that before you prepare for the exam. We know that you have a weak area, everyone does.
Yes.
But I think yours is high enough that, you know, as long as you kind of do that concurrently while preparing for the exam, you'll probably be fine.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at some synonyms here. What is the synonym for car? Which one?
Automobile.
Sure. And hot?
Boiling.
That's very hot, isn't it? Fast?
Speedy.
Good. Value?
Appreciate. Just a minute.
As a verb.
As a beneficial.
Sure. I value your friendship. I appreciate your friendship.
Okay.
Helpful.
Beneficial.
Sure. So, yeah, when we have words with more than one meaning, it can be a little confusing. We have to think through it, but you did great. Okay, and in English, there's so many words like that, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. For a high band in the IELTS speaking section, you need to be able to form simple and complex sentences correctly. So, Monica, can you find the mistake in number 1? I'm going to take a drink because I've been talking a lot today.
Sure, sure. Summer of 20. The summer of 2012 had been very rainy. Had
Had is a possibility. I think has is a better answer.
Okay, okay.
It
First I
depends.
was thinking about has actually.
Yeah, it just depends on the context, I think.
Okay.
Okay, number 2.
Louisa wants to go to the beach next weekend. Wants to go.
Wants to go to the beach next weekend, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just going to underline the ones that are incorrect. Okay, number 3.
It can be two ways. Number 3, when I was in Turkey, I enjoy going to the market, or I enjoyed going to the market during my trip in Turkey.
Okay, very good. So you switched your direction. So yeah, when or while I was in Turkey, I enjoyed. We want to make this past tense, right? Because
Yeah.
I was in Turkey, not I am.
Yes.
Okay. Number 4.
There shouldn't be the in the beginning. History was my favorite subject in school.
Right. We don't need an article there. So
Yeah.
I'll capitalize this. I have the worst time with the pen. And number 5.
I called up the man who I met yesterday.
Okay. I called up the man who or whom I met yesterday. Oh, my phone's
Which one is more appropriate? Who or whom?
I think whom is more correct, but in American English, we tend to say who.
Okay.
So I think you're fine using either in American English, since this is preparation for the IELTS and it's Cambridge, and that's English, British English. I'll go with whom in that case.
Got it. Thank you.
I still personally am learning British English.
Yeah, it's a little different, yeah.
There's a lot of things that say different. So, okay. A fluent speaker is someone who can speak naturally on a wide range of subjects. So thinking about your own language, how can you tell that someone speaks your language fluently?
That someone's language is fluently?
What is your native language?
Hindi?
Hindi. Okay, so if you were listening to someone speaking in Hindi, how would you know they were speaking fluently?
If a native speaker or somebody is speaking very fluently in English, there are some words. They don't pause too much, while there are less pauses. There are what they are thinking is they are speaking. They don't have to process differently, like when it's not your native language, or if you are not fluent, then you have to sometimes think, process it, and then speak it out. But if you are really fluent, words are coherent with your thinking, or you're processing them.
Right. I think we begin to think in the language, in the target language.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I find I study Spanish, and I find that in certain cases I do think in Spanish. So, and that's areas where I might consider myself fluent, but if I'm not fluent by any means in the language as a whole, but I have been able to experience that, and I think that's how it is for any fluent speaker of a language. You just think and process immediately in that language. Okay, so let's talk about part 1 of the IELTS speaking exam. It is about 4 to 5 minutes long, and as I mentioned earlier, before you got here, the speaking part of the exam is with a live examiner. IELTS, Cambridge does use live examiners for that section. If you were taking the TOEFL, you'd be talking to a computer, but not in these of the IELTS. Okay, so the examiner will ask you to identify yourself, and then they will ask you personal questions about your own life or experiences that you'll be able to answer intuitively. So these are some of the topics, maybe your house or apartment, your job or studies. So let's practice one. Would you tell me about what you like to eat?
I like to eat a lot of things. I am a foodie. And most of the time, I like to try with a different cuisine, American, Indian, Italian, Mexican. So I'm a foodie, yes. I like to try different cuisine, but my favorite is Indian. No matter,
Okay.
no matter. And the reason is, I experimented with food a lot, and I still enjoy eating, but I feel full, or I feel satisfied when I eat Indian food. That I feel like, okay, the temptation, the desire, and I'm full. So yeah, I like to eat lot of veggies, lot of curries, and there is some special bread which in Indian cuisine it's very popular. So that is one of my favorite as well. And I'm not a very dessert person, like, so. But yeah, once in a while, I would like to try different, cakes, brownies, something which is very chocolatey.
Okay, so a wonderful answer. I think for you, it's just going to be a matter of fitting within the time frame, because that's a
I
subject
get, I have
obviously you're
so many,
passionate
yeah, but I would like to tell you my weakness here. When I speak, I have so many ideas, but I get confused,
about.
and
Okay.
sometimes I stumble upon, and I get diverted from the topic at times. So,
So you will be given a little bit of time to prepare your answer in most cases. So you'll have a piece of scratch paper, and you can use a template to kind of list the main idea of your answer and then a couple of supporting ideas and kind of keep it structured. And it'll just be keywords that will guide you in your answer.
okay.
You're obviously not going to write out everything that you're saying, but that'll help you. And as you go through the lessons, you'll have lots of practice time. When you work on the practice exams, you'll want to time yourself, and you'll get used to the amount of time you have and the structure of your answers. As we go through the courses, there's typically a course for each type of question. Not a course, a lesson for each type of question.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll have very intensive practice for that type of lesson. That type of question. I'm stumbling.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right.
Okay. All right. So you'll have, let me back up there. You'll have one lesson that covers the part one type of question, these types, personal.
Okay.
And then you'll have a lesson that covers the part two type of questions. So you'll get practice with each of those. And part two are cue cards. Now the sun is coming. Excuse me one moment.
Sure.
It's blinding me. Make it dark in here.
Tony, can you excuse me for 1 minute? My son is playing outside. They are making a lot of sound, so let me see if they are all right. Just a minute.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm going to pause the recording.
Sure, thank you.
And restart that. Okay. So we took a little break, but now we'll talk about part two. In part two, you're given a cue card. So you're finished with the live instructor. Now you're on your own. Of course, you're still being timed. And this particular answer says, describe an interesting website you have visited. So this is going to be very important, and you'll learn these as you go through the Part 2 lesson. You'll learn about the template, but this is an example of the template you should follow. And it basically goes when, I think of the responses being who, what, when, where, why, and how, not necessarily in that order. So we have when, how you knew about how you first knew about the website, what the website is about, and why you think it is interesting. And in addition to that, you can support your answer with examples.
So Tony, whatever is written on the right side in the cue card, do they mention what all they would like to know? Or this is what we should provide information, who, what, when, why, or do they tell you what all information they are looking from that cue card topic?
They won't tell you. They will just give you the cue card, the question, but you will be familiar with this type of question by the time you take the exam. And you know that this is the way you should respond, the template you should use. And you can write it on a piece of paper, who, what, when, where, why. And then once you see the question, you can write your keywords, and that will help you stay structured with your response. I wouldn't give more than 1 to 2 sentences depending on how long they are, but you'll get a feeling for what works for you, but for each part so that you don't run over on time. Okay. What else happens during Part 2 of IELTS speaking? You'll have 60 seconds to study the cue card. Make notes, like I said, so you'll have your little template, and then the examiner will tell you to begin, and you'll speak without interruption for 1 to 2 minutes. I'm sorry, and this part does have the live examiner. I was thinking it was just the personal part, but that wasn't correct. And then you'll have 2 to 3 questions about you'll answer 2 to 3 questions about what you've said. So you'll give your initial answer, and then the examiner is going to ask you to elaborate.
Sure.
I can pause if you need.
Oh, I'm feeling this so horrible. I shouldn't be. I want to enjoy the class uninterrupted.
It's okay. You're the only one here today, so it's not a problem. Okay. All right. Then the third part of the speaking section will last for about 4 to 5 minutes. The examiner will ask you questions related to the topic of your cue card. You'll need to express your thoughts and feelings about this topic. Now, when did we discuss thoughts and feelings? That was actually the reading lesson this morning.
I have one question here. So in the speaking, are there 2 sections or 3 sections? Because part 2 was also 4 to 5 minutes long.
So you have, this is part 3.
Okay.
Part 2 is the cue card section. Okay. Part 3 is the part where the examiner wants you to elaborate and express your thoughts.
Okay.
So, the cue card we saw earlier was about a website. So, for example, the examiner might ask you whether you think young children should be allowed to access the internet. So, it's an opinion question. It's about your thoughts and your feelings on the topic. Another example, whether the government should make sure that everyone has access to high-speed internet.
So in these kind of opinion question, should I stick to my opinion, or it's a good idea to first give a introduction and pros and cons of both, and then sum up with what I personally think?
You are more on track with your second response, but that will be in, I can't go into total detail on that now, but if you take the part 3 lesson, you'll see the total structure and template you should follow to answer that type of question. but your second example was really more on track with that.
Okay.
You're going to express what the question is or the idea of the question, and then maybe the pro and con to the situation, and then your follow up with your feelings on the topic,
Okay.
your opinion. Okay. How good does my English have to be to pass IELTS speaking? Has to be pretty good. Depending on what you need to achieve. So if you are preparing to immigrate, you maybe are required to have, I don't know, have you looked into Canada's
Yeah.
immigration?
She said for reading and 7 for that 7, and for speaking, and there is one more section, 8 or 9.
Okay, so they actually break theirs down, but oftentimes when you're preparing to enter a university, they may just say you need a 700 score, a 7-band score all around.
I asked that as well. Like, are they going to do the average? Like why did I ask that lady who we were taking information, that in case if I struggle in one area and the other one is good, so are they going to calculate the average? She said no, they want individual. Like for speaking, let's say listening and speaking was highest, 8 and 9, and the other one was 7. The other two, writing, and there was one more. Listen.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it just varies with the topic. So that's important information, depending on your purpose for taking the IELTS, you'll need to know in advance what score you need. As far as Cambridge, the people who issue the exam, they don't offer a pass or fail. They just give you that band score. So typically a high level English speaker will score it a 7 or 8.
Okay.
I would expect a native English speaker to score between 8 and 9.
Okay.
I personally don't consider myself a very eloquent speaker, maybe not with a huge vocabulary that some native English speakers have. So
Yeah.
I would not expect to score a 9 if I were to take the exam.
She said it used to be very easy, but from last 2 years they have made IELTS more complex.
Sure. And, they're trying to ensure that you really have the skills you're presenting yourself with, right? So an intermediate student will get a 5 or 6. So if you're scoring on the level test at an intermediate level, you're probably not ready to take the IELTS yet.
Yeah.
And in that case, I recommend that you first determine where your weaknesses are, and your teacher will help you design that learning plan when you take your level test, and you can determine which areas you need to study to bring your abilities and your score up to where you're prepared for IELTS.
Okay.
So anyway, back to the IELTS. The examiner is looking for the ability that you have to express your own thoughts. You can make mistakes. They probably won't hold minor mistakes against you.
Okay.
If you're repeating the mistake over and over and they think that you just don't understand that particular rule or something, then they probably will count you off for that. So if you're repeating a grammar error over and over, you'll probably lose points.
Okay.
Okay, so to get the best results, IELTS speaking is like athletics or diving competition at the Olympics. Athletes need to show off all the skills they've practiced. So you don't want to go into the IELTS and speak at a lower level than you're able, and this would apply to you because you have a high level of English. So you may think, I'll just go in and speak at a low level and then I know I'll do perfectly.
Yeah, and that's what happened exactly. I have so many ideas I can express, but I get confused at that time and I don't express so well.
Yeah, so I think it's better to just use the language that comes to mind and show your abilities. You can speak at a low level, a high level, mix it up. You can have shorter pauses, longer pauses, simple vocabulary, more complicated vocabulary. You know, when we speak in English, we do that all the time. We jump all over the place, and it's just really more natural, and it will make you sound more natural to do that.
Tony, I have a question for vocabulary. So they say prepare for vocabulary, synonyms. I was watching some YouTube video. So my question is, at that time it's also random and there is no like there's nothing in advance we know. So what kind of vocabulary we should prepare, or what kind of synonyms there are plenty, or like you can um, uh, prepare yourself throughout lifetime, like what I mean is then what synonyms or what antonym or what vocabulary exactly we should prepare for then when we don't know the what they are going to ask.
Exactly. So you should, at your level of English speaking, you probably know more than one way to express an idea.
Mm.
You actually demonstrated that when you flipped that sentence earlier in the earlier slide. So I know that you can do that. It's really hard to prepare in terms of specific vocabulary.
Yeah.
The areas that might have more specific vocabulary would be something like, well, as an example, the academic version of the exam. It wouldn't apply in speaking, but in reading and writing, you might, for the academic exam, you might focus on vocabulary that helps you describe graphs or tables or things like that. It just depends on the type of question, you know. But general vocabulary, just use what you know. If you
Okay.
don't know a complex vocabulary word to express what you want to say, use the simpler word.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
we do that.
So it's
That's
a good
natural.
idea to use the complex word or a very nice word only if you're 100% sure. Otherwise, it's a safer bet to go with something which you know for sure rather than.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to misuse a word.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you're
Yeah.
not 100% sure of the meaning, then go with a simpler word.
Okay.
Because if you misuse a word, you use a word in the wrong context, or that doesn't mean what you're trying to say, then
Your pronunciation is not exactly correct. Yeah. Sometimes,
sure. And pronunciation is something that they will listen to, and it is important, but they also understand that we all have our individual accents based on our native languages. So the most important thing is to make sure that you're comprehensible. So if you think that they're struggling to understand you because of your accent or your pronunciation,
Mm.
my tip for that for most students is just to speak slower, because
Okay.
it's just easier. As a teacher, I find that it's easier to understand what my students are saying when they speak slower. I can kind of pick apart the words better.
That is so true. Yeah. I agree.
And yeah, and you probably experienced that listening to English speakers,
Yeah.
especially Americans, because we have so many different accents and regions
Yeah.
in American English. So
In India, people additionally tend to, most of the people, I'll not generalize them still, but tend to speak faster. And even if you are not very fluent, that can get in the way because you are adapted to speak, fast. So then what happens, you sometimes struggle to find the correct word, and that can be a big pause
uh-huh,
in
uh-huh.
your speech. And that happens sometimes to me also.
Yeah, and the Indian accent is very difficult for Americans
Yeah,
probably all native English speakers, to understand when you speak very quickly in English.
I know,
So,
I know.
so if you can slow it down, that will help you a lot.
Okay.
Okay. I know you get in a hurry, you're trying to get everything you want to say in, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right. So you're going to have less than 15 minutes to show how well you can speak English, but don't hurry.
Yes. Yeah.
It's funny. Conflicting ideas, right? Okay. All right. So tell me what you think here. To get the best result in my exam, should I use different tenses correctly? What do you think?
Yes, it is important.
Of
Yeah.
course, we have to use the correct tense, right? Read the newspaper the day before the exam.
But here, that's the problem. In India, newspaper is like a staple. Every morning with tea, the first thing it comes. But here, from 10, 11 years, there is no newspaper. So how people get updated or stay updated with what's going on except on Facebook or news? I don't know what is the way here. So
Yeah,
this
this is kind
newspaper
of
is like
dated.
a must. Yeah, it is like a must have in India. Like if I still remember when we were a student and we were applying for universities, we were being told, okay, increase your vocabulary, reading the newspaper every day, this, that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Here there
it's
is no
dated.
newspaper.
So I would say read the news wherever you read it, whether you read it online or you get the newspaper. Okay. I read it on my cell phone. I read
So
the
which website do you visit to stay updated for the current, like what's going on?
I read various news sources, but I get kind of a compilation on Google on my phone. Google provides me a news. I don't know if you have that
Okay,
on your phone,
okay.
but it provides me news that I'm interested in. You know how Google uses cookies or
Yeah,
whatever
so
to
it filters
decide.
the information and it gives you gist of all whatever you are. Okay, okay. That's
Right, right.
that's a
So
good idea.
yeah, and then I watch, I may watch CNN or Reuters or something like that on the computer or the TV, but for the most part, I tend to get my news right from Google. Anyway, I try not to believe what I see on Facebook.
I know it's so controversial and so many people have different views, but I have a habit of checking Facebook every now and then. And sometimes you get all those, and yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, if you
That's
look
not
at
a
the
very
source,
reliable source for sure, yeah.
as long as you know it's a good source, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
But okay, anyway, we got off topic a little bit. All right, so to get the best results in the exam, should I use synonyms for words in the examiner's questions? What do you think?
Yes, definitely.
Hmm. Yeah, if you know a synonym and you know another word you can use when you kind of repeat back the question, you should do that. It demonstrates your language ability.
Okay.
Okay, should I speak very quickly?
No, that's what we learned just a couple of minutes back. It's
Of course. Right. Speak, it doesn't all have to be the same speed. You don't want to talk like a robot all the same speed all the same time. You want some peaks and valleys, some fluctuation to your speed. But overall, though, if you have a strong accent, try to slow it down a little bit. Okay, should I pronounce words correctly?
Yes, definitely.
Of course, the best you can.
Yeah.
Should I use long words even if I'm not sure what they mean?
No, that's what every time I think when people say make complex sentences, I feel like I'm not that well in making complex, so I would rather stick to what I know and
Only if you're
that's my
comfortable with
thoughts.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
If you're comfortable and and you're sure of the meaning, you can do that. It will demonstrate your ability to use the language, but just be
yes,
sure of the meaning.
that's
Okay.
true.
Should I listen carefully to the questions?
Very, very important.
Of course, absolutely. They'll try to trick you.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I try to memorize questions and answers before the exam?
No,
It's not possible, is it?
no, it's not possible.
It's not, because they changed the exam. So what you want to memorize would be the response template, the format in which you respond to the and memorize the types of questions. And maybe memorize, well, the templates. Whoops.
Yes.
Hold on one moment. Sorry.
Sure.
I almost closed the meeting. Whoops. All right. Okay. So what about you, Monica? Which part of the IELTS speaking test do you think will be the most difficult? And what skills do you think you need to work the hardest on?
Staying on topic and thinking, conveying my thoughts in those 4 or 5 minutes, because I have a habit of going off topic or not coming up with the best answer when I am being watched, or if I am. So I think I need some practice on those cue cards, and speaking, taking notes from sort of keywords. I think I need some practice there.
Yes,
With
absolutely.
opinion, I think I'm okay, because in my personal life also, I don't know, I have a habit of thinking from both point of view. So I think that might not be too big of a problem, in which you have to convey your opinion. But definitely cue card and the first one, which seemed very simple, like what do you eat, but sometimes it's difficult to come up with the best vocabulary or best answer at that time. So I may need some practice over there as well.
Sure, sure. Okay, so it sounds like you have a pretty good idea of where you stand. I want to check real quick, because I'm not sure if I have all the parts for the speaking test up yet. So I'm just checking. Speaking. Part 1, 2, and 3, they are all there. To everyone, as you are, once you have completed the speaking section of the lessons, I'm sorry, the introduction to speaking section, which is the video you're listening to right now, you are okay to go ahead and continue with the other lessons. If you're most interested in the structure of each type of question, then you want to pursue these: part 1, part 2, part 3. And then there are things that refer more to individual issues like fluency and coherence or tenses. But these would be the main sections of the exam, and this will give you the templates and tips that you need for each type of question. Okay, so those ones I would recommend as a must. Do you have any questions for me today?
Tony, what I saw that you showed speaking part 1, part 2, part 3. There was one last one which said that plan your speaking, or how to speak. What is different in that module from the other 3 parts?
I want to see which one. Plan your speaking. Let me see what
or how to
referring to.
After part 3.
I know I looked at the 2 at the top, but I didn't. I didn't really pay attention. Speaking.
Yeah, how to prepare speaking. That's
how to prepare for the exam.
Okay.
So it's just tips on things you can do. Mostly, if I recall that lesson, I believe it's things you can do the day before the exam, just as an example, get lots of sleep, things like that. So, and those are just some of the lessons. That's just what I have up so far, but
okay.
We'll have more too. There's plenty more. Let's see if I can see those. I can't see those there. And if you have special requests, you feel like you need lessons in a certain area,
Mhm.
you're welcome to request that, and I'll try to get those scheduled.
Okay.
But let's take a look at what's not up. This could all change by the time you watch the video if you're watching this. So we have, that's writing, wrong one. There was more on tenses, pronunciation. Actually, it looks like most of them are up. 1, 2, 3. There's strategies. This needs to be scheduled, so I'll get this scheduled. There must be a part 1 to that also. Strategies. I don't see it. Huh, okay. And doing your best. Maybe that might be the one that says to sleep. I don't remember. I don't remember. But okay. So if that's all the questions you have for now,
Yes.
we'll go ahead and end the lesson. For anyone watching the video, if you have any questions, you're welcome to come to the website, worldsenglish.net, and send us your message here, or you can email me at support@worldsenglish.net, and you can put your message in here. And I will be happy to help you just as soon as possible. Okay, thank you, Monica. Have a great day.
You too,
Bye.
Tony. Bye. Have a nice day.